Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for checking into the Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Lots to unpack here today involving the cannabis space and, yes, the psychedelic space. Big news yesterday involving Lykos Therapeutics, their community hearing involving with the FDA MDMA trial that, wow, is taken over by storm here online today. What happened here? Why was it executed the way it was? We bring in former NHLer and big advocate for the industry, Daniel Carcillo. He's going to be joining us in just a moment. As well, we're going to dive into the cannabis space, some corruptness involving a GOP representative of Kentucky, reported by the Daily Beast. As well, the closing finally of Canopy Growth for Acreage Holdings. So let's welcome in, as usual, TDR co-host Anthony Varrell. Happy Wednesday. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How's it going?
I'm good. Still trying to wrap my head around this Lykos Therapeutics thing that happened and how this was conducted, but wow.
I mean, I was trying to find a silver lining in the hearing or trying to find something that went right. It literally seemed like it was worst case scenario and everything went wrong. But I mean, we can dive a little bit deeper into that once Dan joins us. But yeah, it kind of left me speechless with some of the things that came to light and just the overall tone, which I can understand because we can get into it once Dan gets on. But
yeah, I hear you. And I don't think you're alone in a lot of those speechless kind of thoughts when you went through some of the stories and the feedback when you were listening to that open forum. But we'll get into that. Like I said, all right, TDR Traded Black podcast here on a Wednesday. Jump into the wire. We begin with, on Monday, we started off the state of California and news involving the Jones Soda Company. Today, we dive once again into the state of California involving their latest legal sales numbers, which I think is important to share. Many of you may or may not know that sales continue to decline. They, I guess, began decreasing back in 2022, where the state reported $5.3 billion in legal sales, which was down 8% from the previous year. Fast forward to 2023, saw the same period. And here today in the first quarter, they reported the lowest number reported in California since they launched recreational sales back in 2018. So what do you think? What is it? Just the dominance of the black market? Like, what's going on here?
So a couple of things. I mean, it stated that the California market is collapsing, and then it stated that the California market is in peril. But when you look, I mean, sales reached 1.1 billion in the second quarter of 2020 for the first time.
Yep.
And I mean, they're 1.2 billion or 1.1 billion for the first time, 1.2 billion for the first quarter of 2024. I mean, that's not exactly going in the wrong direction. I mean, it's obviously off the highs, which I think California peaked at 1.5 billion for a quarter. The real story here is flat to no growth in revenue paired with the potential excise tax that could take place in July of 2025 that would bump it from 15 to 19%. That's a pretty onerous excise tax potentially on cannabis. The state of California, in its licensing schemes, as well as the regulatory framework that they put in place from a tax perspective, they haven't really done much to facilitate growth in their overall cannabis industry. The state of California has not been a big friend to the industry within the state. Do I think saying that it's under collapse or on the brink of collapse is a little bit
stretch?
Yeah, is it a little bit sensational or is it a stretch? I mean, they're still on an annualized run rate. They're still going towards 4.8 billion in annual revenue. Sure, is there oversupply in the market? Are there businesses that are on fire? Yeah, but I'm sure there's $4.8 billion of revenue going around to some players that are making it in the state. But again, I am scared of that tax increase. A 19% all-in excise tax is onerous, to say the least, on the operators that are in that market.
Love the comment, Happy Burner. Who would have guessed rising taxes in a heavily inflated environment would have affected folks' purchasing power? Well said.
Yeah.
You feel like you're getting places with this podcast. Special hello going out to Wilson Trades Maui. You got people from Hawaii basically chiming in here today. Also, rainy UK from across the pond. So we got people from England and the UK, and as well as Hawaii. So thanks for logging on here on a Wednesday afternoon. TDR Traded Black podcast. This is Into the Wire. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Anthony Varrell. Okay, Headline number 2, and things just get better in the state of, or I should say in Washington, D.C. A story reported by the Daily Beast involving GOP Representative James Comer, who he himself was involved in a failed Chinese business deal. I bring this up because it involved importing failed Chinese hemp seeds through his office, which the documents obtained by the Daily Beast after the Kentucky government released them to a third party in response to open requests. And it contained obviously some pretty stunning information that was intended to import legal hemp only. So worth noting that Representative Comer is from Kentucky and at one point held the title of Agricultural Commissioner. Anthony, when I see this story, I don't know why, but I think a lot of people know why. First person I can think of is Mitch McConnell.
So there's a lot to unpack here. James Comer was the commissioner of agriculture in the state of Kentucky when the hemp program was constructed and brought online. This is just another piece on the board showing how the GOP has undermined the legal cannabis industry while giving strength to the hemp industry in a whole different way, in a whole different light. So the way that this came to light is there was a request for information, an obtaining of documents and emails, and purportedly there was a shipment of hemp seeds that came into the state of Kentucky via a Chinese hemp seed business. Those seeds, when they came into the possession of the office, tested off the charts for THC. That biomass was then instructed to be destroyed. However, those seeds and or those plants, there's no record of them ever being destroyed. It kind of just stops. Further to that, there was communications from James Comer's office that if anyone is to inquire about testing any of the plant matter related to this business that obtained the seeds, they are to be told to go pound sand. That they do not have the right or the ability to test that plant matter. All of the testing comes through the KDA office, which James Comer was in charge of. All the while, this hemp program was the architect and the brainchild of James Comer and Mitch McConnell in the state of Kentucky. Peeling back the onion some more, the company in question, Caudill Seed, are big donors to Mitch McConnell, James Comer, and their campaigns. It just reeks to high hell. It has to do with China in regards to the headline. James Comer has also been reeling on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden for their affiliations with Chinese energy companies. So it's the pot calling the kettle black. It's the GOP being in bed with the hemp industry. There's a lot here. I mean, this is just another piece on the board, whether it's Ron DeSantis, Evan Power, Mitch McConnell, James Comer. I'm sure we're going to have more players come to light that are in bed with the hemp industry or that have tried to sway power within the hemp industry on behalf of the GOP. But this is just starting to get comical at this point.
No kidding. It's why they call it the swamp, right?
I mean, it really makes you think. I mean, we thought it was big
pharma.
Imagine, we thought it was big alcohol.
Calling out Hunter Biden, and meanwhile you're doing this. Like, it's just like you said.
I mean, it's I don't want to call it criminal because it's not criminal, but it's pure insanity. When you look at what's going on, like we sat here and just hypothesized: is it big pharma? Is it big alcohol? Is it big prison? Like, who are lobbying against, and why are these GOP senators and governors so blindly against adult use cannabis and a regulated market? And they're all in favor of hemp, and it seems that they all have the hemp industry in their pockets one way or another. I mean, that explains it very, very easily as to why they have their stances.
Dave Green, great to hear from you. Good point. When you have such a hugely segmented market as the U.S., with more states coming online, there's less reason to go to Cali to get your product, unless you're staying in one specific state. I don't think you can bring that product across state lines, but I agree, my friend. The Dank Informer, the stuff is straight out of SNL. What a parody these GOP members are when it comes to cannabis reform. And later, right, dots are starting to connect. All roads lead to Kentucky and Mitch McConnell being the champion of the 2018 Farm Bill. That's the first thing that I thought of. Happy burner? Yes. Insanity, to say the least.
Yes.
Wow. All right. What'd you make of this? The announcement was made back originally in 2019, but today Canopy closes Acreage. What's your thoughts?
So, I mean, it's good. It's a step in the right direction. I mean, Acreage put out some lackluster numbers last week. I'm not going to lie. Those numbers were cause for concern. In the silver lining in all of this, with Canopy USA closing on the Acreage deal, is essentially it does recapitalize the company. They had $365 million in short-term liabilities. 70 million of that is extinguished with a cash payment, a majority of it coming from Canopy Growth. 30 million is an option premium previously held in escrow that's going to get extinguished via this agreement. And then the remaining short-term debt is the amendment of a credit facility that they currently have. Also, 100 million of the debt is held by Canopy Growth, which I'm assuming it's going to be like robbing Peter to pay Paul at some point. So I mean, that would come off as well. This company is no longer, I would say, a going concern. This company is no longer a part of the story, is that it's saddled with debt that it can't service. Acreage is now turning a new page. I mean, it's a new asset. You can say what you want still about Canopy at large. I mean, people are going to have their reservations. From my understanding, via Pablo, Acreage has 9.5% of the Ohio market. Acreage has a good foothold in New Jersey. They have a wholesale business in New York. They have business in Illinois, and they also have business in Pennsylvania. Those are markets that are going to grow. They're key markets that are part of a growth narrative, and they're going to bring the Jetty and Wana brands into those markets, I'm assuming, as well. Acreage has a lot of blue sky ahead of it. I don't think it's out of the weeds yet, but it is getting stronger quarter by quarter. And I mean, I think that Canopy USA is going to be interesting to watch down the road. As David alluded to, Wana has cash, Jetty has cash, the combined assets all have cash, and now they have much, much less debt. And Canopy has that 200 million in cash that they're sitting on as well. This story is interesting now.
You want to touch on too? I know we were talking off camera earlier this afternoon about just the Canopy USA roll-in and how it has not been rolled into the NASDAQ listing. You want to maybe explain that, because some of our viewers, I think, were misguided, but we should clear that up first.
Canopy USA is not part of Canopy Growth. They are completely separate. There is a Chinese wall. It's an exchangeable share structure. Those numbers are not going to be consolidated. We don't know when those numbers are going to be consolidated. We've asked David. David doesn't know. It's going to be a point in time when regulators allow. And if and when that does happen, which I don't think it's a matter of if, it's more so a matter of when, those numbers will then get to be consolidated within the Canadian, within the international business. But as of right now, they're going to be reported on a not on a consolidated basis. They'll be standalone for Canopy USA.
What was it? $3.4 billion valuation when this deal was originally announced back in 2019, if I'm correct.
On
Canopy? Yeah. I think it was something like that. I read that earlier today, but times have changed, to say the least. But the numbers based on Acreage, you just said, I was going to ask you what needs to get turned around as far as change. And you highlighted, obviously, Ohio going live. That'll be an interesting thing to watch, knowing that they're placed at just over 9% of the Ohio market, correct?
As per Pablo, 9.5% of the Ohio market, and Acreage is one of the top 4 names that has the most upside in terms of torque within the market cap, with growth contributing from the state of Ohio. They're also in those other keystone markets that I'd mentioned. With the debt being gone, I'm not saying it's smooth sailing for them moving forward, but the story has fundamentally changed drastically for the better overnight. And also, let's keep in mind that as per the press release, this deal is not anticipated to be closed and completely done until mid-2025.
Gotcha.
But they have executed the option, and it is now a contributing part of CUSA as of today.
Yeah. Dave Green writes, as soon as the legal barbed wire comes down, CUSA will be amalgamated. Any other comments that we want to see? Big Pharma owns the FDA, writes forward together one. You think?
Yeah.
Here we go. Into the Wire is now concluded. Make sure to smash that like button, share some comments below, and let us know your feedback. It's now time for segment number 2, which is our featured interview this week. It's involving the psychedelic space, and more specifically, the big news over the past 24 hours involving Lykos Therapeutics committee hearing with the FDA, involving their phase 3 trial for MDMA-assisted therapy. So with that, let's welcome big advocate, one of the biggest advocates for the industry, former NHL hockey player. He's involved in the healing rate. Let's welcome in a friend of the podcast, Daniel Carcillo. Good to see you, my friend.
Buddy?
How are things?
What's up, boys? Varrell, you growing the hair out? Let's go.
It's short, man. I had I had the flow going not too long ago. It was real long.
That's good, dude. What's up,
How's those
Chad?
jogs doing? What'd you do? About 4 miles this morning?
4.4 every 0.5 miles, 25 push-ups.
Wow. What's the time on 4.4? Does that matter?
With the push-ups, it usually is 45 minutes to 50, but then I'm also stopping. I'm, giving the old knees a rest and doing some videos, when I get that dopamine hit, I usually do my best work. So
that's good. Well, listen, lots to talk about here. I want to begin with the tweet that you posted earlier today on X, where you outlined and quoted, quote, "If I was the GM of an NHL team, or in this case, overseeing the performance and execution of Lykos Therapeutics, I would take a serious look under the hood internally and figure out who made the mistakes and start cleaning up. I would not look externally and blame the game, aka the FDA, and make excuses. Time to course correct and move forward diligently for the over 9 million PTSD survivors in the country alone. Onward," end quote. I think that's well said. I got to ask, I'm not going to ask, were you surprised based on what you learned yesterday, but when you were seeing this all unfold, were you in disbelief? How much, what was your take on all this?
It was an onslaught, and, they walked into it because of the way that they've conducted themselves. So clinical trial design is extremely important to obviously get a substance or medicine approved through the FDA.
Yeah.
It's even more critically important if you are trying to do something novel, which is get a medicine approved with therapy. It's never been done before. TMS started with therapy and then they dropped it. So, and on top of that, this company has had FDA breakthrough therapy designation for a long time.
Yeah.
What that allows a company is a red carpet. You can pick up the phone and literally call the FDA and somebody will pick up, and you can ask them anything about your trial design or dosing or anything that you need to ask. So I was just thinking on my run, I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's a combination of the FDA not wanting to tell Lykos the full truth and maybe not wanting this approval. And I think it's also some oversight on Lykos's behalf about trial design and what they decided to do with phase 3 and not collecting certain sample sizes. And also there's a lot of talk about the unblinding, but I think that's a topic for another day, because you can't you can't really blind somebody taking MDMA and somebody not.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean that's what I had said a while ago. It was like, when you're looking at the trials, it's like, if you're taking MDMA, you know that you're taking MDMA.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an experience that you're not going to be able to feel. And I think that's what they stated. If it was what I was reading, one of the main problems was the bias that everyone that took MDMA could identify that they took MDMA after the trial. But I mean, after reading a lot of the feedback and a lot of, I guess, the postmortem, was there anything that went right yesterday?
Yeah.
At this hearing, because it looks like they were in front of a shooting gallery that they walked into. With the panel.
Well, they're thinking of relinquishing this panel or adcoms. So 25% of drugs still get approved even if the panel rejects it. And so there is still some hope. I truly believe that there will be approval. I think it's going to, eventually, for sure. It might not be in August, but I do believe that this gets approved sometime in the future. I think that it's going to come, as Matthew Johnson said, from Johns Hopkins and Fred Bear, with some heavy REMS. So, REMS meaning ketamine. When you come in and do Spravato, you have to come into a brick and mortar. You have to be under supervision for at least 2 hours after you do the medicine, and then you can go home. So I think that a lot of these things that were raised, although it sounds very bad, can be
Yeah.
mitigated with a pretty robust REMS program. I think the other thing I was just reading, Matt Johnson just posted, this was one of the issues that kind of came up as well. Although I would have recommended approval, this is Matthew Johnson, and advocated for a strong REMS, the failure of MDMA/PTSD at the FDA yesterday is sobering. Unfortunately, I must conclude that the cult-like psychedelics will save humanity vibe I've been warning about played a role in multiple ways. And it
Yes.
really did. One of the panel members
Yeah.
asked, aren't you afraid that somebody's going to go home and do cocaine after they do an MDMA ceremony? Which I just want to say that because that gives you a little peek into the mindset of individuals that are reviewing drug applications via the
I
FDA.
was, yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean,
Pretty
shouldn't
scary.
the, I mean, some of the statements and just some of the overall tone. I mean, you could kind of question the integrity or the inherent bias in that panel that was in that room. And I mean, I'd also read that this panel and this, and they don't traditionally approve things like this with the protocols and just the way that this is. So I mean, this also is an outlier for that panel in
Yeah.
terms of what they were facing.
They were like, there were some really good things that were said. Some people had some pretty, good remarks about the effects and the effect size. And obviously people coming on like Jonathan Lebecki and other veterans sharing their story like that,
Yeah.
the anecdotal aspect with the data, because some of the data is still rather compelling. And in all their years, they haven't seen results like this, albeit some flaws like most
Yeah.
trials, but first through the wall is bloodiest, and we'll see how they course correct, and we'll see what they come back with,
Yeah.
and what Lykos does with this information.
So
I
this
think
isn't like we need to go rebuild the trial and like redo it. It's kind of like,
Oh,
I guess, picking up the pieces and
nobody's investing in
yeah,
that. Yeah.
correct.
It's not over. So the trials are done. They've done a phase 3 confirmatory trial as well.
correct.
Yeah.
And this is an application now that is either going to be, rejected or accepted with a heavy REMS protocol. And I believe
Okay.
that you can reapply, but it just might take a little longer, because now I've read that they're going to go to each trial site to look for adverse effects, and so
Got it.
it could just take a little bit longer.
So you think
So
the trial's
go
not
ahead,
dead,
John.
it just needs to be tweaked, is from my understanding,
The
correct?
trial's over. This
Yeah,
is
Okay.
yeah.
a submission of an application.
Okay.
So now they're being judged on the merits of the trials, of the phase 1, the phase 2, and the 2 phase 3 confirmatory trials. So I think that they can be asked to go and do more, but don't quote me on that. That's not my area of expertise.
Okay. Were you surprised though? Like, this has got to be the most opportunistic time for the overall industry. And let's face it, like, people have been behind the scenes that have been following this and been involved in this for years. I just could not believe what I was reading, thinking this is not true as some of the stuff that was conducted. I think that's what surprises me the most, is that some of the stuff that you hear for religious and spiritual gains, this is the biggest opportunity this space has ever seen and could change mental health. It's like you would think that you would have everything buttoned up, or am I missing something here? I can't. I'm in disbelief.
I am too, to be
Yeah.
quite frank, right? We all know the corporate game, and
Yeah.
boards run companies. And of course, C-level employees run those companies as well.
Yeah.
It's just recently, right, that the Public Benefit Corp broke off into Lykos. That wasn't too long ago. Again, I don't want to be harsh, but I want to be a realist, and I'm a self-actualizing person, meaning if I came off a shift, That coach is going to tell me exactly what I did wrong, and I want them to tell me exactly what I did wrong.
Yeah, it's great.
So these individuals need to be held accountable, and
Yeah.
there needs to be accountability within their organization, and hopefully they can find a pathway forward.
Yeah.
Was it a function of preparedness going into that panel, or it was simply a function of, hey, the designs just weren't well thought out designs that would stand up to the test if and when we needed to come under this level of scrutiny?
Yeah, I think it's both, and I think that you have to really be diligent when you're setting up trials. And we saw it to a pre-IND meeting, and we had
Yeah.
a full it's a full toxicology program that they have to review in order to graduate to putting this medicine into human beings after animals. And after they review that and approve that, then it's done at these facilities that have DEA licenses like Charles River, and then that information is then taken and built off a human trial design. But the FDA reviews that and they say, okay, that looks good, and then it's up to you and the trial sites to ensure that you're playing by the rules and you're playing within the guidelines that the FDA gives you. If you don't do that within that system and the company that is raising millions of dollars, there's checks and balances. And so I'm a little at a loss where I don't understand, especially with the FDA breakthrough therapy designation, how things like this can happen.
Yeah, no kidding. I got actually an email today. It was a newsletter. I subscribed to Christian Egermeyer, who writes, activists are not necessarily drug developers. My opinion on the FDA advisory committee hearing. And he said, making it crystal clear, it isn't MDMA itself that was rejected per se, but the specific poor data set provided by Lykos. In my opinion, there's still a strong chance that MDMA, with a properly conducted clinical phase 3 trial program that addresses those concerns of the FDA advisory committee, will get approved. And I think that's pretty accurate. And it brings me, actually, one of our viewers writes, where was it on here? Oh, can you ask Dan if he believes that Compass Pathways is in the same boat or different as Lykos? But I do think with some of these trials, the way they're being conducted, like, we don't really know the full details of it right now. But from what I see and hear, like Compass, MindMed, Cybin, from what I hear from people I talk to, this is being done the proper way. I don't want to sit here and say, like, I thought Lykos was doing it improper, but now that we know the information, it's pretty clear that there were some question marks that were raised in how this was conducted. But I think they're completely different from what we just saw.
And so it's a great point. It's a great question. I'm not going to go into specifics because it's been a while since I'm not an investor in Compass or any of these companies, and I haven't reviewed how they're doing things.
Yeah.
But I will say a lot of our investors from Healing Realty Trust reached out to us and said, "Oh, what a blow!" And we said, "This isn't a blow to us," because there was a specific part of the hearing where somebody actually called out and asked a question of, well, will these be able to be done at home if the therapy aspect gets dropped? And it was very, very clearly and unequivocally said that these medicines, regardless if there's therapy or not, will always need to be done, and this is the key word, with supervision inside of a facility. And I'll tell you why this applies to your question, Shad, or whoever asked it, because some of these drug development programs, I'm not going to tell you specifically which ones, actually dropped the therapy component because there is no precedence for approval. So their medicine is being administered under supervision, which will always have to be done in a brick and mortar, similar to ketamine, which will likely, a big percentage of those will be done in a Healing Realty Trust facility.
Big
opportunity.
So
the hang up from an approval standpoint at the FDA is somewhat of the talk therapy component.
There's no precedence. There's no precedence. They don't know how to quantify. They don't know how to quantify endpoints of talk therapy. They know how to quantify endpoints of a medicine, of a substance, if it meets a clinical statistical significance. But those two together, it's never been done before. And then you add on the layers of the cult-like experience. Now, listen, I want to be very clear. I love Rick Doblin and I love MAPS and I love everything that has to do with the hope that they've been able to provide. I just know where to draw the line and separate out the kind of, as Christian put it, the kind of activism to who you're dealing with. I mean, when you read comments and hear comments that one of these panel advisory board members thinks people are going to go home and do cocaine, you can see where their mindset is.
Yeah.
Where that they still think that magic mushrooms are going to melt your brain, you know.
But I mean, this is something we've dealt with in psychedelics and with cannabis. It's the roots versus the suits.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of known that it was a skeleton that was sitting in the closet for some time. No one's really addressed it yet. And unfortunately, it happened to come out yesterday at this hearing.
The first through the wall is bloodiest. And I really feel for the Lebeckis of the world. I feel for veterans. I feel for Matthew Wiz Buckley. I feel for Heroic Hearts Project. I feel for these individuals that may have lost hope right now, but hope isn't lost. This is why I have always advocated, and I've told you guys this numerous times, I advocate for all three. Where's the camera? All three, right? Decrim nature, having access to your own consciousness in a responsible way. I advocate for these statewide programs, and I also advocate for these medicines to be going through the FDA synthetically. That's my third option, because insurance reimbursement means something, and people need to tap into that. But you should always advocate for all three, because you can't rely on a loving government to have your back, and so that's why, like, think about this now. Think about how important Oregon is right now. Think about how important Prop 122 in Colorado is, where you can legally go into a regulated framework and access psilocybin tomorrow if you wanted to go there to get healing. That's important right now, and I'd feel remiss if I didn't mention that people can actually go there and legally partake in an adult therapeutic use psilocybin program in Oregon.
So what do you think's next for Lykos? We wait till obviously the FDA has their, official ruling, and it's around the second week of August. In the event it's approved, and obviously onwards and upwards. In the event if it's not approved, what do you think? Like, where's the focus then circulate around the company, do you think?
That's a good question. I think I saw a quote from Lykos saying that they will do everything in their power, and they still are very eager to work with the FDA to have, again, it's going to take like a very robust REMS program. And I think we just have to wait. I believe there's a public comment area in between, the next ruling or hearing. So I guess it's just a wait and see. There's obviously communication happening, and I'm an eternal optimist. That doesn't mean I'm overly positive, but I still think that there's a way forward, and I'll continue to advocate and support this form of therapy until the day I die.
Given the current conditions right now regarding like the suicide rates, where we are in society right now, we talk a lot of stats regarding veterans. Like, we've had Wiz on. I cannot believe how many, what was it per day? How many veterans?
It was like 32 or 42.
Yeah, they say, they report 22 or 23 or 24, but it's really more like 44, because some of the deaths don't actually get reported as suicides, but it's extensive.
Wow. But do you think that there's, I guess, any chance the FDA would approve, even though what we saw yesterday, like, given, like, we look at this and like the current conditions, that as to what's being done, we need something? Or is that, probably a stretch?
There's always a chance.
Yeah,
for sure. There's always a chance. So I challenged, and I'll say it here too, so hopefully some people hear it. There's some investigators that are pretty, that'll go. I've seen, like, you interact with them on the Cannabis. Somebody please go and do this for me, okay? Take the ISA report and take all of those individuals' names, and somebody correlate that along with all of these panel members. Please give me a background into their history, and if they've ever sat on any executive or boards of big pharma or any of these companies, and make a correlation, because it's just a guess, but these are very strong powers that A, don't understand this, and two, maybe don't want to understand this. The Dank Informer, get that guy on this. I just don't have time. All right.
He will
I did
find
this.
it.
He'll find
He
it.
will find it.
Dank
Trust me.
Informer, tag him, and I'll do it. I'll do it right now.
Yeah.
I want to know. I want a list of the names, and then I want a list of where these people both went to school, academia, what patents they hold, and then where they've worked or what affiliations they have. Now, the reason I want this is because the reason I bring certain things up in ideologies is I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a realist. I do not know if the FDA purposely didn't help Lykos or personally said, "Oh, don't worry about collecting those samples in phase 3. You'll be fine," to set this up. So I'd and those relationships, I think, will shine a light and maybe tell us.
I'd be willing to bet you could draw some parallels, or not parallels. You could draw some similarities between all of them.
Yeah.
And connect some dots.
Well, there's always two sides to a story. We saw obviously a lot of the information yesterday, but I really would like to get somebody on from Lykos to talk about, what went down, because I'm sure they have a voice in all this too, right?
Absolutely, they do. Yeah. And, the framing right now is very emotional. It's very heightened, right? It's very, and really, me coming on here, the things that I talk about are more psychology related. Like, none of us really know what the FDA is thinking of doing, right? This is just a panel. But I think if you look at the ICER report, you look at that symposia, those people that have constantly been attacking maps for years and decades, and then you look at this last, like, you can see these consistent little blows. And it feels to me like the machine's at work right now.
Yeah.
And
I've heard that. I've heard that a number of times in the last few months. As soon as like this first surfaced, this report,
you can expect that, right, Chad? Like, you should be ready for it, right? You should be aware of it, and you should be ready for when it comes. So hopefully there's an answer.
I understand there's people that back it, but what I'm trying to wrap my head around is just the way these trials were conducted in a certain way. That's the part that was, I understand there's people backing it and there's an agenda that's involved, but that's why I want to get on Lykos to get their side of the story and hear what they have to say, because ultimately, let's not quick to judge. There's a lot to judge right now if you look at it on paper, but at the end of the day, it's just like, let's hear the other side of the equation and then give the information. That's what proper journalism used to be like, Mr. Carcillo.
Yeah, right? Is that what you... I mean, I remember you doing that when I was on the Mississauga Ice Dogs. So, we need to bring that back.
Way back, buddy.
Speaking about the ice, I mean, you've hoisted a couple cups yourself. Who you got?
Sir.
Cats or Oilers?
So I like the Cats. I like the Cats because the Cats have been there. Right, they've lost last year, so that experience goes a long way. I think you saw that in the Rangers series where they just didn't seem to have that last answer. But you look at the size of that goalie on the Oilers and the size of his mustache, and then you look at McDavid and Draisaitl, like, those are wild cards, man, and Bouchard, like, those are so.
Stars outshot him 35-10 in Game 6. I'm like, expect a lot of that in this series.
Wow.
The only difference is the Cats, man. They're just complete. They know how to finish.
I think it's their year, and I think if Bob shows up, continues to put in the performances he has, I think it's going to come down to there's so much. There's very, very little parity. It's going to come down to which one of their goalies is going to steal one game. Yeah, and that's going to be the win. I mean,
dude, Shesterkin was obscene in that series. That man is a brick wall.
He's good.
I obviously, for obvious reasons, I've got the Cats too.
What's crazy is the older I get and I'm working around the clock of this business, there's probably 75% of players. I have no idea who they are in the league anymore.
No, dude, we're setting up a transition program in Oregon for people to come experience the medicine, get in nature, figure out what they want to do in life. And I'm like, thank God I know the agents, but I have no idea who these kids are, so no phones allowed either. So.
Right. Yeah. Carcillo to Pronger, back to Carcillo, oh baby.
He's still got it. Still got it, folks.
Mississauga Ice Dog goal scored by, was it 13?
Let's go. I think TDR needs a sports segment, boys.
Well,
sports and life.
We got torched the other day for
shelled.
talking sports.
Yeah, we were getting shelled for sports earlier in the week.
Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Let's go. Create a wing.
We need another trip to Denver. Oh, that
no
was
doubt.
fun.
When's that happening? You guys, I think the Dales report needs to come to Oregon and open up your mind a little bit.
He
I'm all for Oregon.
He keeps pushing me for that. I got to do that, don't I?
No doubt. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I won't lie. Talking to the wife last night, I'm like, this is crazy, man. 7 days a week around the clock. And I will be open and honest, like right now, like you start to feel a bit of the burnout a little bit. And love what I do. But at the end of the day, I'm sure you come across a lot of people that you speak to that probably go through a lot of that stuff. But I think with some of the messaging with this space, like extreme cases are very, very important. And those people need help. I also think the key messaging too is stuff that everyday people can relate to. Like if you're a father that's trying to raise a family and financially and working around the clock, and there's like, end in sight, you're in your mid 40s. It's like, you've come a long way, got a long ways to go. You start to feel a little burnout. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can understand and relate to that stuff, right?
Yeah. It's not all about, and this is, since my last trip, I did a high dose about 4 weeks ago. HBO was there. I brought 2 athletes. Like that's going to be coming out in February.
Amazing. I saw that. Incredible.
Little follow-up. Yeah. And it's a matter of yes, okay, some people are coming to this sick, but some people like myself, I'm not sick. I'm a well person now. And I came to it when I was stuck. I was stuck in, and I think everybody can relate to this area of my life where I knew I needed to do something, but I was just paralyzed a little bit by fear. And I was thinking that I was doing something. So I was relating it to Oregon, where I was looking at all these sites for my clinic. Yeah. And I kept finding things wrong with it, even though I know I'm doing it. I've raised money to do it. So I went there to kind of relinquish and silence that fear, that lizard brain, the second, the third thought that we all have. Well, don't do that. This might happen. When in reality, those thoughts are not based in reality, right? So it shuts that off, and then it allows me. I just put it very simply. Think about any time that men get to go into a community, talk to other men, put their phone down for 6 to 7 hours and get a reset and get to look at things and get a fresh perspective on life. And then come back to your responsibilities, Shad. Come back to being a father when you're more patient and loving and present. And everybody around you can feel it and see it. And you're not stuck in work mode, flight mode. You're just a little bit calmer. So these are the types of things, and this is the way that I try to communicate this to men like us, because and then I think it's like knowing who your room is, right? And because I have a ton of concussion survivors that need this because they've lost hope. So I know how to talk to them. But for the most part, if you want to improve your life, it's a really great way. It's a really great way to get a reset and to be able to do that.
Well, the proof is right in front of the camera. At age 10, I see. It looked like you're getting younger. Look at the glow on your body. How's life in 40? You like that or what?
Dude, it's amazing. My knees are a little sore, but you know what I've been experiencing or experimenting with is NAD. So I've been, and it seemed to like extend this half-life of this past mushroom experience, which is pretty phenomenal. So Wilson Trades. Thanks, bro. Yeah. In the morning, every other day, every third day. It's been nice.
The Dank Informer writes, just DM me what to look up. And
let's go.
All right. The good stuff. That guy's on it, man. He is phenomenal.
The
Dank Informer, if you're looking for a side gig too, maybe we should hire you. But
dude,
listen,
amazing.
Great stuff. I appreciate the feedback. Always love talking with you and catching up. And the same time, keep in touch, and hopefully, we get some positive stuff over the next few months. But very interested to see how this develops, because it's got everybody's attention. So we'll know one way or another come August, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one way or another, it's not, I don't think it's the end. If it doesn't, I think there's only 60% of drugs get first round approval. So it's not, there can be other rounds, right? If they can find other data. So everybody just stay positive. And some of the best medicine is available at your fingertips now, right? If you're suffering, get up, exercise, movement, get into the sun, fix your diet, right? And be mindful of the things that you're putting in your mouth.
Saw this on Joe Rogan's podcast. You can't outrun a bad diet, right?
No,
No, you really
That
can't.
is-
No.
that is 100% fact.
There was a systemic review of every single study done on exercise, SSRIs, and you want to know what was the most effective to treating depression?
Exercise.
Dancing.
I saw
Really?
that.
Fucking
I saw
dancing.
that.
Excuse me. I don't know if I can swear on live, but I just did. Dancing, dude. Dancing. So get your onesie on, Shad, and
Well, I'm in the
get front of
process.
the mirror.
I've got the immigration lawyer hired. I'm trying to get down to Florida,
Dude,
and
I
we
just took my citizenship test, so I passed. So
Nice.
I got my ceremony booked in 2 weeks.
Well, we'll go live Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays with this, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays we'll form a boy band and go live.
I can't. I keep telling my parents, like, just start a business down here, and then
Right.
The Dank's in. The Dank's a drummer for sure.
When's the TDR Music Festival?
Right?
Who are
When
we
is that?
headlining?
I don't know. It could be. I'm good, buddy. Could be My
All right.
Morning Jacket.
Let's go dance.
Yeah.
We gotta come up with a boy band name. That's it. Oh, Wolfie's even in too. I'm in. All right.
Let's go. All right.
No, we'll get the AI version of Zeppelin
Yeah.
in their hologram form
I'm down for
to
that.
perform. Yeah.
All right.
So we're at Four Top. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good chat with you, brother. Miss you.
Yeah, man. Miss you guys too. Nice
All
seeing
right.
you.
Talk soon.
Take
See you,
care.
boys.
Tip.
Good guy. Really good guy. Man, has he
Yeah.
changed his life around. I think he puts things into perspective, but yeah, we're quick to react, and why not? I can understand why people are reacting the way they are, but at least there's a little bit of hope in looking at things a little bit differently based on the conversation that we just had with him. But
I mean,
one way or
it's
another,
good to know. It's good to know that it's not the end of the road. I mean, there are other avenues here for what they're doing.
so the trial is done. In the event they say no, can they, like the FDA, go back and say tweak this? Like, how does that all work?
You're asking somebody that has no idea what they're talking
Yeah.
about to answer that question. So I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, let's have somebody on, hopefully from Lykos, anybody out there that we are reaching out to them. So a lot of you have been reaching out to me too to see if I can get Erwin Simon on. I've been trying hard, so we'll continue to push forward and try to get him on again. And yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up. Appreciate everybody for logging on here today, reaching the 50-minute mark now. So this is a long one, but leave some comments below. Let us know the feedback, what you thought of today's show regarding the cannabis topics that we discussed, as well as some of the stuff that we discussed during the psychedelic segment with Dan Carcillo. Do you agree, disagree? I don't care one way or the other. I love it when we get lots of comments, and we'll provide feedback as soon as possible. And as usual, we've been highlighting MaryMed, TrueLeaf, Green Thumb, CureLeaf reports are now available and our baked-in newsletter. So if you want to have full access to all those reports, log on to thedalesreport.com and subscribe, or just click on the link here in the comment section. We appreciate it. Anthony Varrell, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you back here Friday morning at 11 a.m.
Should be a good one. Talk soon.
See ya. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.